There's such a thing as nurturing the art and the artist in a way that they can fulfill their best potential and full potential without having to crush their souls.
Yeah.
We're past that. We don't need that anymore.
Alexandra, it's so lovely to talk to you. And
it's so very nice to meet you, and I'm grateful for Ruben to have connected us.
I know. Isn't it wonderful? And you are in Michigan.
I am in Michigan. I teach at Central Michigan University in the middle of Michigan. But right now we're on spring break, so I'm actually in Kansas City because for the week, because my husband works in Kansas City. We have a long distance marriage.
Oh, I see. Okay, so how far is Kansas City from Michigan then?
Well, from Mount Pleasant, where I live, it's about a 2-day drive. Well, 13-hour drive, which I usually take 2 days to do because we have dogs and Patrick wants to see the dogs too, so I have to bring them.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. But you're teaching piano.
Yes, I'm a pianist, and I'm on faculty at Central Michigan University, where I teach the piano majors, the undergraduates, and the master's degree students. Yes, okay. And I've been at CMU for 27 years. Yeah. So I arrived in the fall of 1995.
Okay.
For that job. I applied to the position. It was a national search, and I was offered that job. And I've enjoyed it very much, and I'm still there because I enjoyed it.
So, you're a pianist, so do you still do concerts as
yes,
well?
Of course. But the pandemic really put a damper on that. The last 2 years have been, there's no nice way to put it. They've been horrid for everybody. And of course, for artists, it's been very difficult. I am fortunate to have a job that still pays my bills, a job that I enjoy. But that other side really got a blow. However, this is very complex, and I don't know if we'll address this and how you want to go at it, but there has been a shift in my priorities, and I have realized recently, for the last decade, I've discovered that my true passion is teaching and guiding young kids into fulfilling their potential. So we can talk about how that all evolved if you're interested in. But
yeah, I would really like to talk about that, because that for me also it's something that I think is very important, and I think also the role of the teacher is very important, because sometimes a teacher can nurture this talent, and the artist in the student can develop. And I think this is very positive then, and this is a very great thing that teachers do,
Yeah, a teacher can make or break a student. Yeah. That's pretty much it. And I am actually a product of the conservatory type teaching. And when I was growing up in Portugal, I'm originally from Portugal. And when I was growing up, the mentality at that time, and I say at that time because I haven't been there in ages, and perhaps it has changed for the better, and I hope it has changed. But at that time, the mentality was, you teach if you cannot play. And the truth of the matter is that never sat well with me, even from a young age. And I always felt awkward about that statement that you only teach if you can't play. And I obviously can play, and I played in many major venues around the world, including Carnegie Hall, got a great review. So, that is not even for dispute. Yes, I can play. But the truth of the matter is I was raised feeling guilty about wanting to teach. And it wasn't until 2010 when I underwent a major traumatic event, brain surgery for an aneurysm, that my career came to a complete halt. My life came to a complete stop, and I had all the time in the world to think and to reevaluate my priorities and what I really wanted to do with the rest of my life. Because I survived that brutal surgery, and And I was surprised that I survived. I thought I was ready to pass when time came to have that intervention. But I woke up slurring words and not being able to walk normally and not being able to play, and all of these things made me reevaluate my life. So I recommend brain surgery. I mean, for some people who are stubborn like I was and totally on this mission of becoming the best pianist in the world, which is not possible, not possible. And so, yeah, it's been a very fascinating journey.
Well, this is so interesting that you're saying that, because I think also in this pandemic and the fact that a lot of people had to come to a standstill and a lot of things had to be reevaluated, that I wonder how many artists have this, went through this process of really thinking, is this all worth it? Is this strive to perfection, is it all worth it, or is it more about the art?
Well, see, and I know several artists and actors, Broadway actors, who came to a stop. They couldn't anymore fulfill their art. And I saw an interview with several of those Broadway actors stating how they, for the first time, encountered anxiety and depression and complete loss. Well, of course, complete disorientation, career disorientation. Who are we? Because that's also something that is important to talk about, that we as artists, we grow up identifying our self-worth as individuals with how well we perform in our artistic path. And I'm a case in point where I felt that if I had a memory slip in a concert, even at age 15, my life was going to end and I was a bad person because I made a mistake. And this is a product of the conservatory type teaching. And that conservatory type teaching does not happen only in the conservatory. It happens at universities in the US and across the world, with private teachers across the world. So this is still prevalent. And that identification is really dangerous because, especially for vulnerable teenagers, it can cause really deep anxiety and depression. And I know of some who committed suicide, and we can't go there. We can't go there anymore. There's such a thing as nurturing the art and the artist in a way that they can fulfill their best potential and full potential without having to crush their souls. Yeah. We're past that. We don't need that anymore. And I had that happen to me, and I don't even know how I fought back all the time and surpassed it to continue to play and still love music. I mean, really, by all accounts, I should hate music by now, but I don't, because my passion was so profound that I wanted to succeed. And I did. But at what cost?
Yeah.
At what cost? And we can prevent that. So at Central Michigan University, because I was so disturbed by this that I witnessed in young students, I proposed a course of performance anxiety management to get the myth of performance anxiety out of the closet. It's time to face this demon and to face it. And when I was growing up, when I was feeling afraid to go on stage, it was dismissed right away. It was like, no, we don't talk about that. You just deal with it. You just go. You be strong and go. Otherwise, quit. Well, I didn't want to quit. So I went on stage and I did it. And I usually, once I was on stage, I did a solid, good job. But it was always, there was never this comfortable, and I know we can be completely comfortable, but there was never this feeling of excitement. It was a feeling of dread. And then once I got on stage, I was able to focus, and then, yes, I played well, quite well, considering. So I felt, okay, I need to help these kids. And I was so fortunate that the administration at Central Michigan University School of Music saw the value in such a course. Well, when I offered it the first time about 7 years ago, I thought I was going to have 5, 6 people register. Well, I had 43 at my door, 43
Wow.
kids, college students at my door. And I thought, oh my God, this is unbelievable. This is so needed, more than I thought. And so CMU is really a pioneer in this. Now, there were some schools already offering wellness courses for musicians. Juilliard was one of them. University of Michigan was another one. I did my research, but there was no school offering a full-blown semester course in performance anxiety management. We started it as a special course because the university has to test it first to see, is this going to
Oh,
be
I see.
popular enough? And so
Mm.
after testing it for 3 or 4 semesters, then I applied. I started the process of applying for it to become a permanent course in the curriculum of the School of Music at CMU, and now it is.
That's amazing. And is it just now there, or are you taking it now to other universities as well?
Well, what I am doing, I'm starting the process of creating on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, but this summer I'm going to really start a subcategory devoted to performance anxiety management. And I have been invited by high schools and colleges to do workshops on the subject. So yes, I've been a guest to do that. So if you know anybody in Europe who'd like me to come and do even a Zoom, we can do it via Zoom. I have been doing quite a few of those.
Well, that's amazing. I will put anyway the link to your website and your YouTube channel. I will put on this interview, so if somebody is interested, they can definitely contact you.
Yeah, my email and all that would be great. Yes.
You know, I think it is so important. We have been talking, and people have been talking so much about that side of things, you know, for artists. And I've been speaking to artists over the lockdown time, also doing interviews, and many have said, you know, that it was the first time in their life, or first time in a very long time, that they really could just sit back a little bit and enjoy what they were doing, playing the repertoire that they would love to play. And that was so interesting for me, you know, that even though there were no concerts and they were that stressed and the financial stress, there was this side of them that they really enjoyed having the control themselves of what they were doing.
So this COVID break, so-called break, also impacted me in terms of the repertoire choices, because I have, regardless, for the last decades, I've been doing research on the music of Brazilian composer Francisco Mignone, but also on the piano music of Portuguese composers. And so, yes, I released in the past 2 CDs of Mignone's Brazilian waltzes, Valsas Brasileiras, and also his 4 piano concertos, which are 4 fantasies for piano and orchestra with the Kalamazoo Symphony Orchestra in Michigan. And that's music that really appeals to me. And also the music of Portuguese composers who has not been performed so much in the US. And we have really substantial, wonderful composers in Portugal. But I always felt the pressure to play the music of the dead German composers, the dead Russian composers anyway. And but that I always felt it was quite limiting, because in addition to the music of Portuguese and Brazilian composers, which is not that widespread worldwide, I always felt compelled to collaborate with living composers, because it's so important to keep that going, because they are the ones who are here now. Yeah. Beethoven, Mozart, Brahms, Rachmaninoff, they are fantastic, but we got to move past that. Now, it's not to say that I don't play Chopin here and there. Of course I do, but because I love it. But it's so important to keep bringing other composers to the forefront. And so the pandemic really made me realize again where those priorities are. And I think my priorities now, in terms of the repertoire, I really want to play what I want to play, when I want to play, because I have the luxury to be able to choose, because I still have a job that pays my bills, which is a wonderful job at CMU.
Yeah, and now that you're talking about the composers also, it's, you know, also that we have to start also learning and getting to know the new composers and the new works, and I think that is that's part of the responsibility also of artists, is to reintroduce and to educate.
Yes, yes. And I consider myself very much a scholar and educator in addition to a pianist. And as again, as I said, as I was growing up and through all my studies, that was not something that you even dared to say or to claim. You were a pianist, period. And you were a performer, period. There was nothing else. So I'm proud of the career I've carved, because as a woman coming to the US when I was young, I was 19 or 20 when I came to the US to study. And I was supposed to be here for 2 years to do my master's degree, and I'm still here.
Okay.
It was a very long 2 years.
Yeah.
Because I fell in love with the country and the opportunities that it provided. Now, the US, of course, has many social issues, but hey, which country doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Every country has its problems. But what I admire so much about the American spirit is that entrepreneurial spirit and the opportunities that artists can still find in the US versus, well, I'd say versus the countries where we're from.
Yeah.
And Portugal has evolved a lot, and I'm so proud of my home country now, because I see also that there are plenty of opportunities, and universities have developed. They are very strong now. At the time that I left, there were no universities for careers in performance. There was no Bachelor of Music or Masters of Music in piano. Now there are. And so hard to tell. If I was growing up now, I probably have pursued my master's or my doctorate there because there are opportunities.
But now, when you are teaching and with your students, how do you promote them, or how do you encourage them to find their own personality and or to be their own person in this world where I mean, classical music has its rules and
Well,
strictness, you know, but
yeah, we are rule breakers. I'm breaking all the rules. I
okay.
am not comparing anyone to anybody else. I'm not holding every student to the same standard. To me, they're all good enough as long as they practice, as long as they work hard and are self-motivated. I encourage their own self-sufficiency in problem solving. I teach them how to practice efficiently efficiently and productively. I teach them the value of discipline. So there's no cutting slack, of course. I mean, working hard, but I do not crush their souls. I encourage them when they don't do well. I try to find the reasons as to why they're not doing well, and then we address it in a positive, constructive manner. And the truth of the matter is that there are thousands of professions that piano majors can pursue, not just being a performer. That's a thing of the past. That's a thing of the past. We need to move on. We're not in the 19th or early 20th century. We are in the 21st century. Musicians have to be very versatile. A pianist has to be able to improvise. He or she should play jazz. They should learn music theory really well, because if they get a university job, no longer you're going to find a job like mine. Universities are cracking down on the tenure piano position. This is a thing of the past. There will be very few. And what they're doing is adjunct positions where you have to be able to teach more than one discipline, being music theory, being jazz piano, being music history. This is the reality, guys. This is the reality. And so I'm training these kids to be as versatile as they possibly can. And the truth of the matter is that I have students who graduated who are doing amazing work in grad school and in the professional world. So let me give you 2 examples right now. This summer, in May, I was invited by a former student of mine, Denise Derdovsky from Kosovo, which was a war-torn country. She is an entrepreneur now. She's in her early 30s. And she founded now in Kosovo, in Pristina, a festival that she will hold this summer. For the first time, she invited me and two other of her piano teachers to do that residency for 2 weeks to nurture and inspire amazing young talent from Kosovo. And this is my former student at CMU. Another one, also this summer in July, Diogo Passeira, he, with his brother, who's also a very good pianist, founded a piano competition in the north of Portugal in the rural area. And I'm the guest who's going to open the festival with a concert of all Brazilian waltzes. And then I'll be a judge for the competition, which is in its, I don't know if it's third or fifth year. Anyway, it's at the beginning. So these are our students. And are they playing much? Yeah, they're playing, but they're also, Denise in Miami, she lives in Miami now. She founded her own school, art school, piano school, music school. So this is the goal. The goal is not to create classical concert pianists. That's not the goal. The goal is for them to still play well and be successful if they choose that career. But it's also open the field so they can see, I can do this. I like this. Oh, this is more what I'm like or about. There's so much out there, Petra, so much.
Well, I get excited about that because I do think that music should be taught to young children, not because you want to create some art, musicians and like you say, concert pianists, but some children need to be educated in music so that they can appreciate it and that they can have that experience. And if there are students finishing at the university who can also do something like that, or also, like you say, be entrepreneurs and go out into the world and use their talent in different ways, not just to perform on stage.
That's right. That's right. And to perform on stage and only do that, it takes a certain type of personality and character, and you need to be very resilient. And to keep playing at a certain level and actually keep developing as a pianist, you can't be teaching the amount that I'm teaching. I mean, there's no way with our teaching duties that I can find the time to evolve as a pianist. I can pretty much stay there at a high level, but stay there and maintain that, yes, because that's what's realistic about university professors. Let's face it, university professors cannot be the performing artist unless they are on a special category. Some universities invite them to be just a distinguished professor of piano. All you do is travel around, play, give master classes, and you have maybe 5 students. Okay, then it's doable. But they are free of all the other obligations that we, the others, have to do. The majority, the vast majority, has to do. And as I said, it was through that I enjoyed, through this job that I figured out how I enjoyed guiding these kids. So I have a saying here. I say that teaching is the sexiest of all professions because nothing is sexier than guiding youth into fulfilling their utmost potential.
No,
you can quote me on that. You can quote me on that. Sexy.
Sexy. Yeah, but I agree because it's about the love for the art and it's love for the music that I think it's so important to inspire young people to do that.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's the love, in my case, the love I have for them, the love for the youth, the love for these kids. And I don't have children. My husband and I decided not to have children. Also, it's kind of hard when you have a long distance relationship, which we've had for a long time. But so my students are my children in a way.
Yeah.
And so if you teach well, you fulfill the role of way more than teaching them the craft of the instrument and the artistry. You really are a guide. You are a counselor. You are a second mother or father. It's fascinating. I just enjoy so much, and I have so much love in my life and a very close relationship with all my students, former and present. And I'm proud of that. Very proud of that.
Well, this is wonderful, and I think it's I think they also can be very lucky that they have somebody like you, because I think if you can install this love, then they will also do that again with the people that they get in contact with and other young people. So
Exactly.
it's that chain that you create, because they'll always
Exactly.
remember that.
And you got to the heart of the point, which is they will not perpetuate a cycle of an iron fist, of teaching what I call the iron fist, the conservatory type teaching. They will learn to teach with still instilling a lot of discipline and hard work, because again, you cannot achieve anything without that. I don't believe in talent. Talent's fine, but talent is not. I've had students whom I don't consider highly naturally talented, but they've gotten way farther than the ones who had all the facility and then didn't work because they had the facility. So really, it's all about hard work, and they understand the importance of hard work and discipline. They do. But you don't need to be mean to them for them to develop that.
Yeah. Now, I love your way of teaching and your outlook on this. I think it's so necessary, and this can also be, because I've also spoken to many artists about this. Why are art not valued? During lockdown, people were complaining and saying art is not valued, and then we have to start thinking, but also, how do we have, why don't we have art in schools anymore? Or why are young people not interested? Or why do people stop playing the piano at some stage? Because maybe it could be the teacher who, like you say, the teacher who can take all the fun out of it, because not everybody playing the piano. I mean, I did a little bit of piano lessons, but it was not enjoyable for me, and I would never have become.
Let me ask you this: why was it not enjoyable to you? Can you pinpoint that?
Well, I cannot remember really much, but I do think it maybe had to do with maybe the way I was taught, or and yeah, I think with many times you hear something like, oh, I just dreaded, people saying I dreaded the piano lesson, or I dreaded the violin lesson. And
do you hear that mostly in Europe or the US or overall? Do you know?
I don't know. I can remember, for example, my children played, all three of them played violin, and I knew they were not going to become violinists, and I then went and I bought colored violins, like the varnish of the violin was, so the one, my son had a black one, and my one daughter had a blue one, and the other one had a pink one, and they played, and they loved. I think that made it part of the fun of playing then. And when they did their violin exams, I would dress them also in the same colors as the violin. It was like this thing. They were still very young, but it was, Mm-hmm. And then my one of my daughters came to a violin teacher who didn't like the colored violins, and she always had something to say about the fact that the violin has a colored varnish. And I think in a way, and it, my daughter would always come home and say, the teacher said you should buy me a proper violin. So she always believed that she didn't have a proper violin.
Right.
And I think in a way, maybe that also is something that there was no way that my daughter would have become a violin, or, she didn't have that level of interest in the violin, but I just wanted her to enjoy the playing of it. I always thought it's so important to play an instrument. And I sort of, I regret that teacher, was like that about the fact that it was not a very expensive violin.
So my take on this is that Europe, Eastern Europe, Latin America, very much there's very much a music tradition, right, and that conservatory hardcore training, which is really, at least traditionally, was not meant for people to have fun. It was meant to just build concert artists, concert performers. In the US, however, and we know how this country started, right? The first wave of immigrants who came, they brought their pianos, but they were mostly they played mostly church music, hymns, so they didn't have the training. A lot of them, they were from lower classes, as we know, trying to escape religious prosecution. So they come to this country, they find freedom, but they're playing. And so I firmly believe, and nobody, I mean, I haven't talked to anyone about this to find out whether it's for sure or not. I mean, I haven't done formal research on this, but my take on it from reading a lot and from observing is that in the US, yes, they founded pedagogical methods that are very fun for kids. They use the teaching methods, which have lots of drawings and things, and kids have a lot of fun. However, in the US, because it's such a young country, we're still evolving in terms of real professional schools of piano, in terms of performance, because there are some very good American teachers, but the vast majority are recent immigrants from Russia, from, well, Portugal, from, from other countries that are now starting that pedagogical, how can I say this, a stronger pedagogical approach at the college level to build higher quality performers. And no, by no means I am putting down American pedagogy. That's not what I'm doing. I'm saying that we're evolving because the country is too young. And whereas Russia and China and Japan and Europe have had centuries, right, to develop this musicianship, here in the US we haven't. So it's just a fact. And so it's much more recent. And but the kids here have a lot of fun. Now, that doesn't mean that they're learning the proper technique. And I can say this because I have decades of experience traveling around the country and judging competitions. And I see that the top players are Chinese. They still are Chinese. They are Russian or they are European. And there's one or two Americans that get up there, but it's still not the norm. So that tells me, from observing it, that's what this tells me, is that there's not a strong school yet of a firm school of American pianism that builds technique like they do in those other countries.
Yeah.
It's starting. Yes, there are pockets. There's a certain teacher here who's very good. There's a teacher there who's very good. But there's not yet a unanimous consensus of how to do this, which is natural. I mean, the US is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. But it's great because it's evolving and we are a part of history.
Yeah. Well, I think this pandemic has also maybe made us all aware of how important all these things are and how important art and music and let's hope there's a like a renaissance in
yeah, I never got to answer that question of yours about art being, well, art is always going to be the first one to get out from schools because until people understand how art can be therapeutical and how it develops the brain in kids, but politicians know that, they know it, but it's just not their priority because they run countries as businesses, and unfortunately art does not bring the millions. So it's up to us, the citizen, the individual citizens, through philanthropic actions to really make things happen. Because if that doesn't happen, governments are, that's it. I do not believe in governments sponsoring arts. It's just not, because the trend has been to cut. And I don't see a way to change that. I really don't in the near future. So it's our responsibility as individual citizens to find ways to bring that to kids. And I'm trying to do that with little trips I do to rural Michigan, to schools where music is cut or non-existent, and travel with my keyboard and trying to just play with my keyboard so the kids at least have some exposure.
Yeah.
But I feel a responsibility to do that.
But that's wonderful that you do that, and you never know who you touch, when you or who you, a child that might just see or hear, and then
Exactly, and the
the
bottom
seed
line
is
is,
planted. Yeah.
and they get very excited when I play these Brazilian waltzes, and they fascinated. They want to play a keyboard because they've never played an instrument. They hear the sounds like, what is this? I'm talking really poor rural communities. Yes, and in my way of thinking, if I can touch one more person, if I can
Exactly.
make one more person just choose this or just be inspired by this, and this can change their lives, I feel like I fulfilled my mission on earth.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. But now, Alexandra, tell me what on this point, what is your wish for the future?
Well, I mean, now with this war in the Ukraine, I have to tell you that I've been very, very, very down about this, like so many of us have, and I feel very anxious and depressed about it because I think about the kids, the women especially, but the men who are fighting, even Russian men who don't want to be there and
Yeah.
are fighting for a war they don't understand, because what is the reason? And so, and then I feel for the musicians, the dogs, the cats, the pets, the animals. I feel it very strongly. So I'm trying to process that within myself. I found that mindfulness and meditation, breathing exercises, yoga has contributing to find some peace, because us all being unhappy about that war is not going to change the war, but
Yeah.
we need to exude love and compassion. And what I desire mostly right now is peace. That's what I desire mostly. And then to help Ukraine to rebuild, somehow rebuild their lives. I mean, to think that one day academics were writing an article to submit for publication, people were enjoying it outside in a restaurant, having their meal, and the next day on survival mode to try to just survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's something that I'm having a very hard time understanding, because there's no reason for this war. There's no reason for this war.
Yeah. Well, I think we all see also how much they, that solidarity that they have, and the leadership that they have, and I think it's also something that we at looking from outside, looking in, that we can learn something from it. So I try to think of the positive things that we can understand now from this situation. And I think leaders of countries have to look at this leadership that they have and just think, isn't it incredible? And
it is,
how,
and the love. It's love. It's all about love. I mean, this is really what humanity is about. Humanity is no longer about war. We don't need to engage in these wars because we have the education. We know there's no reason to engage in wars with one another. What we should be engaging in is building each other up and collaborate. And I'm all for that, but we can only do so much with our little corner here. I'm doing what I can within my field, in my little corner. If we all could do that, right? Cultivate our own garden, right?
Yeah. But their president Zelensky is an artist. He was an actor. So that's an example for the world to see,
It is. He's remarkable. He's remarkable, and he will go down as a martyr if anything happens to him, which I hope it doesn't. But if anything happens, he will be the true hero.
Yeah.
Putin is, of course. I mean, I feel sorry for Putin. He must be a very unhappy soul, very, very unhappy. But Zelensky, he's a god. He's, in my eyes, he's
but this is my point: is he's an artist, and his way of thinking and his way of doing is just so different. And I think this is also something that governments have to, this is leadership. This is real leadership, and I think if we could educate children in arts, and that we will have more leaders for the future, or better
Like
leaders
that.
for the future, definitely.
Absolutely. That can always be our hope.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I think that we should never give up, and that's the one thing I say to fellow artists.
Yeah.
And I know some people would think, well, it's easy for you to say you have a steady job. Yes, I understand that. But however, I think that we should never stop being in touch with that part of ourselves as artists, because it's a big, big part of ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's something that I will always continue to fight for.
Okay, so Alexandra, is there a coffee shop or a restaurant that you would love to do a shout out to in your area?
Well, so in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, where I teach at Central Michigan University, right, which is the beauty of America. You have in the middle of all these cornfields and rural atmosphere, you have a university. And so the decentralization of education, which is so remarkable. So in Mount Pleasant, there's a coffee shop that was just started by 2 members of our community, and they're very young and motivated, and it's called Ponder Coffee. And I'm advertising, guys, if you're listening, Ponder Coffee in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. They have an amazing avocado toast.
Yeah.
It's so good, and all their coffee beverages are so wonderful. And there's also a Korean restaurant, very, very teeny. It's like a little cubicle with 5 tables. It's called Shin's Korean Restaurant.
Yeah.
And I go there at least 2 times a week because it's wonderful, delicious food.
It sounds amazing. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm hungry now, and it's only 10 a.m. my time. Okay.
Oh, okay. And you're not even in Michigan, so you'll.
No, I'm in Kansas City with my husband, with whom I've been married for 21 years, and we're still strong. We've been apart for about 12 years.
Oh, okay.
Well, we make it work. We make it work.
Yeah,
it's a choice, Petra. It's a choice.
Yeah.
When you find the love of your life, you make it work.
Exactly.
If you want to.
I thoroughly believe that. I believe in love, and I believe in that the right people get together. Yeah.
Well,
but
listen,
Alexandra, it was so lovely to talk to you, and I wish to one day meet you in person.
Yeah, I believe it or not, I'm a musician. I've never been to Austria. I've been all over the world, but Austria and Germany, I haven't been there. This cannot be. So I have to change that.
You have to, yeah.
I'll work on that. I'll work on
Okay.
You take care. It's beautiful to meet you. You are a beautiful person inside and out, and I'm so thrilled. You made my day. I'm happy.
Thank you, and you made
in my
mine.
wrinkles.
No, don't get rid of them.
Oh, I won't. Not today.
Okay, Alexandra.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye, Petra. Bye-bye.